So it's looking a lot like Joe Biden is going to win November's presidential election. One of the reasons why I say this is because a recent ABC Washington Post poll had Joe Biden leading with a massive 11% lead, 11%, 51% to 40% supporting Trump. Now, that's well outside the margin of error, which is about what, 3 to 4%? Now, I get it, polling 3 months before an election, things can, anything can happen. And it's not a definitive, Biden is going to win in November, but it does go to show that Biden is leading by a lot and Trump has a lot to worry about. And he has shown some concern. He fired his recent campaign manager, and there's been internal dialogue saying that Trump is furious with his campaign staff. But I think that, again, it's too early to draw conclusions. Many things can happen over the next 3 months, and I'll be getting into that in this video. So I hope you guys enjoy. So there are several factors to consider, and the obvious one is COVID. The economy is currently in a recession right now, and it's COVID induced. And whether you like it or not, a president that's in office is always going to be impacted by the economy. Whether it's good, it affects a president positively, or whether it's bad, it affects a president negatively. And right now, it's affecting the president negatively. Trump's response has also been really bad, and that's also had a major factor. Trump's COVID response, bad's an understatement. It's been abysmal. I'm not putting this lightly because if you see in his COVID press briefings, he's made a lot of mistakes. He's also tweeted conspiracies. He's linked COVID to the flu early on. He's had a strong reluctance against masks, which has been shown to work. And he said that, oh, the CDC said that masks didn't work. And if you've heard that level of argument, early on, the CDC kind of was hesitant to give guidelines about masks and if they worked or not because hospitals, they didn't have a good supply to provide all their nurses and doctors with masks. Remember that shortage about I-95s, I-95, N95s. Am I saying that right? Definitely, no way they're called K95, N95. So early on, remember how they were saying that N95 masks, if you have some donated to your hospital, early on, there is a shortage of masks. So early on, there's a reluctance to say that masks work because everyone is going to go ahead and buy masks. And then guess what? Nurses and doctors and healthcare workers don't have enough of them. So now that he's finally turned around and said that masks do work and that it's not going to get better before it gets worse is a good thing because it's true. And the fact that he's giving us, the reality, it's important. And early on, he wasn't doing that. Remember when he said in Easter, it's going to be great. The church bells are going to be ringing by Easter. And let's also not forget that Donald Trump has said some really silly things in COVID press briefings. Remember his whole disinfectant claim, how if you inject disinfectants, maybe that can help with COVID. I really can't make this up. Take a look.
And I can tell you that bleach will kill the virus in 5 minutes. Isopropyl alcohol will kill the virus in 30 seconds, and that's with no manipulation. Thank you very much.
Bryant. Mr. Bryant.
Totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that too. Sounds interesting.
Get the right folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me.
The president mentioned the idea of cleaners, the bleach and isopropyl alcohol you mentioned. There's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there? I mean,
No, I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study. We don't do that within that lab, our lab. So.
So how do you...
Are we simplifying
Through
too much?
injection. We're talking about almost a cleaning, sterilization of an area.
Right.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but it certainly has a big effect if it's on a stationary object.
Yeah. I only bring this up because Donald Trump wants to have COVID press briefings again in the coming future, and I think it's going to hurt him if he keeps doing things like this. So Trump's response to COVID has been bad, abysmal, whatever you call it, and it's hurt him in polling because independent voters that are on the fence between Trump and Biden right now, they're going to be looking at whether Trump's leadership in the pandemic, was whether that's something that as a country we need. It's been shown that, who do you trust more? Biden has been shown to be more trustworthy than Trump, and it's just the reality of the matter that COVID is hurting Trump because the economy is hurting, and it's also because of the way Trump has responded to COVID. Let's get on to Biden. Actually, real quickly, before I get on to Biden, look at this photo right here. Now, I have no reason why I'm showing this photo except to just say that he looks funny in the mask and he looks a little bit angry. I'm glad he is wearing one, and now back to Biden. So, Biden, oh my goodness, that guy. So, pre-COVID, I didn't think Biden had a great chance against Trump, but now with COVID and social distancing, I think it's actually helping Biden that he's campaigning from his basement. He's just not making many public appearances and not making a lot of public speeches. And that actually helps him because the guy is not a great speaker right now. He's losing his train of thought. He's not 100% the person he was. Joe Biden has had a lot of blunders. Here are some of them right here.
And turn this primary from a campaign that's about negative attacks into one about what we're for, because we cannot get reelected. We cannot win this reelection. Excuse me, we can only reelect Donald Trump. Science over fiction. We choose truth over facts. And so, folks, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
Chris. I just did Chris. No, I just did Chuck.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
And, Joe Biden making stupid comments or making silly comments like that really hurt his chances in November's elections or drop his lead to within the margin of error. Another wild card is also what happens in the debates. I think that Joe Biden is not in the best shape to debate Donald Trump. Now, interestingly enough, I think that social distancing might help Joe Biden in debates because Donald Trump feeds off of crowds. If you've seen him in debates, he loves to get a crowd going. If he can get a laugh going, if he can say this thing that's obviously wrong but gets a crowd going, he loves it and he feeds off of that energy. But if there is no crowd, I feel like Joe Biden's going to do a much better job in debating Trump. It's possible that Joe Biden does pretty well and it doesn't hurt him. I thought that pre-COVID that the debates were going to happen and they were going to hurt Joe Biden, but now I'm having a little bit of skepticism about how bad they're going to be. Another thing to be mindful of is that Joe Biden is in his late 70s. In your late 70s, you have a lot of comorbidities and, things happen. And Joe Biden sadly lost his son in 2015 to brain cancer. And if you know anything about genetics, it's very possible that Joe Biden could have something that comes up in the next 4 years. So Biden's health is something to be mindful of and a really major wild card to consider between now and November, because if there's anything to give us any indication that his health is an imminent concern, I think that can really hurt his polling and his support in November's election. A wild card could also be like Joe Biden fainting, just like Hillary Clinton did in 2016. So what I mean by this, I could just show you. Here's a video of Hillary Clinton when she was boarding her ride. It looked like she fainted, and I believe her campaign staffers originally said that she didn't faint, that she was just tired or something like that, but she fainted, and it ended up drawing a lot of criticism. Whether his internal staffers want to admit it or not, I think that Joe Biden is going to be a one-term president if elected in 2020, and his VP is going to be really important because whoever he picks is most likely going to be the person running in 2024. Again, it's all about likelihood and chances. And now I think this might segue nicely to another factor for the 2020 election, and that's a Supreme Court vacancy. Now, a Supreme Court vacancy is Very possible because Beta Ginsburg, I always mess this up. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is currently in her 80s right now, is a Supreme Court judge. And she has a reoccurrence of some type of cancer, I read. I forgot exactly what it was. And she had a recent admittance to the hospital. She was fine. It was a non surgical operation. Because she is more of a liberal judge and she was nominated by a Democratic president, she wants someone that's more liberal or just as liberal as her to replace her. I think it's very possible that she resigns. I think she's holding out right now. I think she could have retired a long time ago. So why is this important? I really want to stress that a Supreme Court judge may be one of the strongest positions in this country. The Supreme Court makes a lot of choices on legality of certain policies and legislation, and they can effectively legislate through court decisions. Now, here's what I mean by this. Obergefell versus Hodges, that was a case that was brought to the Supreme Court questioning the legality of same-sex marriage in different states and whether that was a 14th Amendment issue, equal protection clause. Making same-sex marriage illegal was shown to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court, and therefore no state is allowed to ban same-sex marriage, meaning that effectively the law of the land is that same-sex marriage is legal. So that's one instance from 2015 that shows you how powerful the Supreme Court is. 9 people can decide for each state what's constitutional or not. Well-known example is Roe v. Wade, which was in 1978, I believe, and that pretty much made abortion legal in every state and banning it unconstitutional. So a Supreme Court vacancy would mean a lot, especially if it happened before November. And this does have an impact. In 2016, Obama was actually not able to nominate a Supreme Court judge. There was a vacancy in the last 9 months leading up to the 2016 election that Obama was not able to fill because Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader that I mentioned in my last video, was actually withholding the nomination because of he made up a rule that technically you couldn't have a Supreme Court nominee months before an election because it was up to the American people to decide who was going to be the person to nominate the judge. He made up this BS rule for why Obama couldn't pick a Supreme Court judge.
The most important decision I've made in my entire political career was not to fill the Supreme Court vacancy when Justice Scalia passed away.
I was shocked that former President Obama left so many vacancies and didn't try to fill those positions.
I'll tell you why. I was in charge of the of what we did the last 2 years of the Obama administration.
I will give you full credit for that. And by the way, take a bow. All right, that was a good.
And I felt like that tilted the election a little bit in favor of Trump. Now, I think something similar could happen between now and November. That's a wild card. Now, another factor to consider for November's presidential election is that who Joe Biden's vice president is going to be. And you know what? I actually have been just checking my news notifications because supposedly Joe Biden was going to nominate someone for the vice presidency by August 1st. I remember reading that some time ago, and he's still narrowing down the list. He hasn't picked someone yet, but from what I have been seeing in the process, he's looking at California Representative Karen Bass and also looking at a Senator Kamala Harris from California, who was actually in contention for the nomination for the presidency as well from the Democratic Party. And he's also looking at Susan Rice, who's Barack Obama's former national security advisor. So these are 3 women. And if you saw that trend, it's because Biden has made the promise that he's going to pick a female for the position of the vice presidency. Joe Biden's vice president is going to be a female. Now, think about it. If Joe Biden is a one-term president, that means in 2024, his vice president is going to be in contention for the presidency and going to maybe be the first female president. So these are some things to be mindful of. You know, the economy weighing down on Trump, Trump's own reaction to COVID-19, which has been pretty silly, and Joe Biden also not being a strong debater right now, and how that's going to be, how that's going to look like against Trump in the future, and how social distancing is going to affect all that. Also, you know, who Joe Biden's VP is going to be, because that's going to impact this election a whole hell of a lot more than in recent memory. And this also, Joe Biden's health, hopefully he's going to hold up. Also, the health of the Supreme Court Judge Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and there's also other unknowns that might happen. I'm sure that 2016 draws a lot of memories about Hillary Clinton's FBI investigation, the reopening of it I think it was like a month right before the um, time to go ahead and vote. And in 2018, there's also the Kavanaugh hearings, which was unexpected. There's going to be things that might come up. I know that Joe Biden, for example, is being attacked upon for being this radical leftist, that he's like Bernie Sanders. And ironically, I don't think that's actually going to help Trump boost up his poll numbers, because a lot of people just don't buy it. Donald Trump saying that
Biden wants to fund the place.
Sir, he does not.
Look, he signed a charter with Bernie Sanders. I will get that one, just like I was right on the mortality rate. Did you read the charter that he agreed to?
It says nothing about defunding the police.
Oh, really? It says abolish. It says fund. Let's go.
All right.
Get me the charter, please.
All right.
Chris, you've got to start studying for these.
He says defund the police.
He says defund the police.
Donald Trump is attacking Joe Biden on things that aren't working right now, and maybe that switches up. Maybe he switches up his lines of attacks, and maybe that has a change in how voters see Joe Biden. All right, so all of this is going to have a major impact on the election, and right now the polls are favoring Biden. Right now in Pennsylvania, a college poll from Franklin and Marshall shows that if the election were held today, 50% of the vote would go towards Biden and 41% would go for Trump, meaning that a 9% gap in Pennsylvania, that's bad for Trump, because that's a key state that Trump has to win if he wants to win the election. And that's a huge lead. And there's also the Quinnipiac University poll. I hope I pronounced that right. That showed that nationally, Biden has a 52% lead versus Trump having a 37% lead or support. And that's huge. And even more surprising to me was Texas. Biden was leading by 1% in July, and that's huge because Texas is a Republican stronghold. It's a red state, and this should draw a lot of concern for anyone within Trump's circle or for Republican candidates in Texas. Now, I want to wrap up this video with saying that Donald Trump and Joe Biden, this election is going to be a referendum on Trump. It's already pretty much been shown in polling that people aren't really that excited about Joe Biden, but they are really energetic about taking Trump away from the presidency, because again, he's erratic. He's not shown to be a great leader. Now, I have a lot of personal opinions about Joe Biden. I have a lot of reservations on him because of the questionable things he said and his inappropriate touchiness of women. And, you know, he's made statements about it. There's also the one sexual abuse allegation against him. And, you know, there's been interviews on it. If you want to look it up, you know, make your own opinion. He's voted on different things that, you know, have been questionable. The crime bill, incarceration rates, especially in this political environment where we're really talking about whether communities of color are being over-policed, and Joe Biden contributed to that. So there's a lot to be mindful of. But Joe Biden, as a decent, moral person compared to Donald Trump, is just miles ahead of him. He doesn't have Twitter fingers. He's not spewing conspiracy theories. He's not saying things that are beyond the pale. Like, I remember there was something that really struck me to my core when he had suggested that the freshman congresswomen, including AOC and Rashida Tlaib, that they should go back to their countries when they were born here. And that to me was really fucked up, because I was born here, and like, what do you mean you should return back to your country? I'm sorry. He's just really beyond the pale for me. And I can see why people would vote for Biden just because they don't like Donald Trump, or they would vote third party just because they don't like Donald Trump or Joe Biden. And I am leaning towards voting for him right now, but I don't like the situation right now. I wish we had some, like, Andrew Yang or something like that. Or I think that right now we need to talk about who do we want to lead this country and who's better for this country. And I think that Joe Biden would be better than Trump. And that's on character and not on policy, which is, you know, a bitter pill to swallow, because, you know, when you vote, when you cast your ballot, you want to be choosing someone that you have mostly policy agreements. So this election is going to be a referendum on Trump and who do you want to lead this country. And that's my personal take on the matter. But that's all I have for you guys. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe. I would really appreciate that. I am overjoyed when I see someone subscribe or like my videos. It means the world to me. And if you leave any comments, I also read them. If you have any suggestions, leave them below. I want to improve this channel. I want to be an effective communicator of the issues. So again, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.